back here on the Cover 3 podcast live from Big Ten Media Days, and we are pleased, nay honored, to be joined by Gary Danielson from the Big Ten on CBS. Gary, we are really excited to be able to spend not just today with you, but this season with you. It's going to be a very special season. What really are you looking forward to going into this fall, and what are you going to be trying to grab onto to make sure that it's everything that you would want it to be?
Well, when this first was announced, we came and did the Big Ten Media Days, and there was that, I think healthy competition that the Big Ten was trying to say, come on, we play football here too. The SEC is dominating, but we're a field goal away from beating you guys and being the national champions. And my basic message was, I don't care how much money the media is going to give you, the TV revenue. I don't care how many nationally televised games. You got to win these games on the field. You got to beat them. If you just can't talk your way to respectability. You got to win, and they have. For 2 straight years now, best against best. They've shown that they belong on the field, and I think the continuation of the Illinois, the Washingtons, everybody, the next layer of showing that there's not just 4 good teams in the league, there's 6 or 8. That's the argument now the SEC's making, and that's the next step for the Big Ten.
But what do you think's been the key for that kind of step forward for the conference to where we have that? Because for so long it really was just Ohio State and Michigan. But like you're saying, now there are so many programs that really feel like they're ready to compete. What do you think spurred that? The
national championships. The fact that back in the day, the Big Ten, it was the trophy games. It was the Big Ten championship. That's all that matters. It was a regional. They were proud of it. And they let the SEC kind of slip by them. They spent more money. They recruited harder. And they had their goals set on national championship or nothing. That's how they proved themselves. And I think the Big Ten has said the bar is higher. We have to win these games. We have to recruit harder. We have to get better facilities. We have to show on the field that we can compete. And then the rules moved their way. The NIL and the transfer has really helped the Big Ten because there are more high school talent available to the SEC just where they live.
Sure.
But they're no longer going to be backups and third stringers for Saban and Kirby and LSU and Florida. They're going to gravitate around and the talent is spread out. It's a better game than it was 5 years ago.
Gary, we've also seen kind of fewer transfers of key players, leaving Big Ten schools,
yes,
with very few exceptions. What do you think they do culturally that allows them to keep those guys, other than, like you said, paying them?
A little bit might just be the mindset of a Midwest player. I think down south, and I live down south now, high school kids will transfer to find the right place to play. That doesn't happen as much. It's just the way they've grown up. It's more in the South, and I'm nothing against it. You should find a place that matches your skill set to prove what you can do. But I think in the North it was more, no, this is where I belong. This is where I started. They don't shop around. I felt like high school football in the South was like AAU basketball in the South, in the North too. So kids weren't as married so much to the geography as they were to their careers and what they were doing. I think the transfer portal and the NIL, with all the stuff that was a positive for the Big Ten before, is been the best thing that could have happened to this conference. And the expanded playoff is the best thing too. But I will say this still. The passion of the fan base of the South, they show up for every game. That's why all this argument over 8 conference games or 9, that's what happened to the Pac-West. Their fans wouldn't, Pac-12, they would not go to the games if they didn't have a big matchup. The South shows up for their games, like Ohio State shows up, Penn State shows up, Nebraska. The conference has to show that they have that passion and follow their team, because in the South, that's the name of the game every week for, 5, 6, 8 months a year.
In your first season of the Big Ten on CBS last year, was there any stadium or any game that comes to mind that maybe didn't surprise you, but you at least had to take a beat and say, oh, wow, they showed up for this game. They brought the kind of environment that was worthy of that iconic 3:30 p.m. Eastern time slot?
I kind of grew up doing these games.
Right.
Ness and I started the noon game at ESPN. Brad was hired, and we were put in that spot. We grew up with Wisconsin football. In 92 or 93, whenever they went to their first Rose Bowl with Barry there, when we did the noon nationally televised game, almost literally, the band met us at the airport. They were so happy for us to do a national game, and we grew up with that, and we saw Wisconsin go where they had 30,000 empty seats to where it was must-see college football. So no, not really.
Right.
I guess it's been a little bit of the criticism on me, especially from SEC fans. I never really talked about what happened outside the stadium. I was like, my job is the white lines. And if I get caught up in, the boats at Knoxville or everything that's happening around the game, I'm going to lose my focus of what I've been hired to do. And that's almost like being a referee, and I've seen this now with my grandkids. When you're critiquing, not criticizing, but when you're critiquing players with a lot of these teams, Ohio State and Michigan, with the teams that follow their teams, fans that follow them very closely, it's like people that are criticizing their kids watching high school games. They take every word you say personally. So I thought it was my duty to stick between the lines and to not really think about what's happening outside and everything, but stick to what it is. However, that said, I think what we were most proud of last year is the way we did the Illinois game. We heard from so many alumni. I heard from so many people that finally somebody gave us a due of our history. And it was almost like they were almost forgot it themselves, like, wait, we got a lot to be proud of here too, okay? And that was really fun and great for our crew.
Costumes and everything.
Yep,
just spot on.
and everything.
It's great.
You mentioned, you started in television in 1990 after your playing
Right.
career. So, when you think of how college football has evolved, television has been such a huge factor. You were kind of at the forefront from when it started really becoming the national broadcast week in and week out. So from 1990 to now, being around every single weekend, traveling all over the country, seeing all these programs, what has really stood out to you as far as how the game has evolved and changed?
The game or the sport?
The sport.
Ooh, good clarify.
The immediacy of the criticism that goes almost instantly affects everybody in the total equation of college football. From the coach to the coordinator to the offensive coordinator to the referees to the analysts to the TV executive producer getting the call from the commissioner of the league that they don't like what well, come on. You're supposed to be for us. We need your voice to help us get that second team in the playoffs. Everything counts, and I've just did an interview with the Wisconsin fans. What do we have to do? What do and I go, I don't know. Nowadays, it's week to week to week, and you hear it immediately. It's not like, well, let's wait till Tuesday to see what Barry Alvarez has to say and what the local writer writes. Everybody's weighing in instantly. Every mistake is magnified. Every decision, everybody has a point about. That's cool. It doesn't bother me. I played, I was a walk-on quarterback in the NFL. I lived week to week for 13 years in the NFL. I know what it's like to have that type of job. But I think most people now are waking up to like, wow, this is so different. I don't know if it's different for a quarterback or a head coach or an offensive coordinator, but I think what you guys do, the podcasts, the immediacy, that's changed the sport.
Is there a team you saw last year where you're like, all right, they're not ready this year, but give it a year, fast forward to now, they're like I'm ready to watch them this year.
I was going to say that, but everything, I think what Indiana has done has changed the sport now. I think every president or athletic director goes, well, why don't you just bring in 20 guys?
Just do what Kurt did.
Yeah, what do you mean?
Right.
So now that changes everything. But I was really enamored with the way, not just the fact that Indiana won all the games, it was just the way they played. you think, well, you need a couple years to put this togetherness together to know, when the guy to the right of me or the guy to the left of me, what they do, I have to know what they're going to do. And that grows over years of building the program. Not anymore.
Like the lack of mistakes?
Yes.
Yeah.
They played solid football. And listen, they got criticized at the end, but when you play the top teams in their building, anybody's capable of looking like that playing at Notre Dame. I'm not saying they were the best teams. Playing at Ohio State and playing at Notre Dame, that's a tough job
places.
for anybody.
Yeah.
So I think the bringing it all together again and the fact that, the northern schools are going to be bringing in these players from the Toledos and, the North Dakota States and South Dakota, those guys want to prove themselves right away. And Kurt showed that good coaching can be immediate, and that even brings more pressure to the table.
Looking ahead to the 2025 season, the quarterback outlook has some very few but very important recognizable names at the top. A lot of question marks, double-digit new starters in the league. As you look at your position, how do you analyze the quarterback position going into 2025?
So that's what's really the most new from going back to your question about the way it was in 90 when I started, even when I played, to the way football is now. Quarterback position, there was two types. There was the wishbone type of quarterback that ran the ball, and could you give me 4 good passes a game? They might be a bomb, but the guy would be 20 yards open. Or there was the drop back guy where if he could scramble and give you 1 first down a game, it was like, oh my God, we got a dual threat quarterback. Okay, so now the quarterback position, every game is a dual threat, and in the modern offenses, you have to have that, I think, to compete at the high level. You can win games with other type of guys, but you better have it all put together. And the second part of that is getting the veteran quarterback, like look what happened. Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State, Notre Dame, they all brought in veteran quarterbacks that paid off right away. That's what's going to be more and more. Like Drew Aller, it took him 2 years to get to where, like, okay, we can depend on this guy in the fourth quarter of a big game to win the game. Now you have it, will these younger guys take that step? And that's the challenge of building a program through a quarterback. You don't want to start a year early. I'd rather start 2 years late than 1 year early as a quarterback.
It's almost like they got spoiled by having all these kids had the extra COVID bonus year, right?
That's
so
right.
Like, I'll take a 24-year-old at
Sure,
quarterback.
Dylan Gabriel.
Right.
Exactly. He's seen it all. I mean, so that was a big difference. But I think what's required of the quarterback, that offense is so dynamic now. If you have a guy that can do all that what Will Howard could do, and then get it to those key guys out there that's a tough offense to stop for anyone in college football.
On Ohio State, like obviously we know you watch a lot of film. They broke out some different stuff in the playoff. Is that stuff that when you watch them in a regular season, you're like, why aren't they running this? Why aren't they running that? Or was it really a surprise to you?
So we did them a few games, and Chip Kelly has his way of how he sees a game. Let me go back a little bit and just be old like I am, a veteran, okay? Back when I was in the Big Ten, Michigan and Ohio State could win every game and go to the Rose Bowl. When winning the Big Ten championship and beating the other team, that's all that mattered. And they would roll over everybody else by not taking any chances. They would just, like, let's just run our stuff. Why throw the ball 25 times? We might have a sack, fumble, an interception. They didn't need to do it, so they didn't do it. And when those teams ended up going to the Rose Bowl and played the Stanfords and the USCs and those teams, they struggled because they hadn't done it. And I felt a little bit that's what Ohio State and Penn State did. They were where Oregon played their same style the whole year. Mm-hmm. And I felt that was a little bit, it caught up with them. There might have been more factors in that Michigan game. I think Will Howard got nicked in that game, and they thought they could play it safe and get through that game, and that might have been obviously it was a bad decision, or if it was that decision, I don't even know. But I think a little bit the same with Penn State. They got relying a little bit too much on the tight end and the running backs, And when against the teams where they really needed the receivers, they did not have the experience. Like, okay, now you want me to throw this dig route against USC in the fourth quarter with 4 minutes to go. I've only thrown this thing 3 times all year live. And now I got to do it when everything's on the line. I would like, instead of, I know I can throw it to Tyler Warren 17 times. And I know the wide receivers for Penn State weren't as good. But to beat the good teams, you're going to need all 11 guys. And I think that's what these teams, to take that next step, has to do.
Well, Gary, our audience here, many will know, but before the Cover 3 podcast was the 24/7 Sports podcast. Before the 24/7 Sports podcast was the SEC on CBS podcast. And the Cover 3 podcast would not be here today.
When we just had radio? Is that what you're saying?
If you didn't tolerate an hour with me on the phone every single Tuesday. So thank you so much for everything that you've done for us, for CBS. And we look forward to following along starting August.
We all watch you guys. You're experts at what you do. You know, just because I played, I don't know any more than you do. You watch it. You do your homework. A pleasure to be on. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Gary.